Right, following on from the last recording then, I'm going to just do a quick discourse on decision making in uncertainty. Well, sadly, from the academic point of view, it poses almost insurmountable problems as regards rationality. By which, put it in everyday language, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a good way of handling it. And yet we have to. You know, even not to make a decision means you get a certain outcome. I mean, a particular outcome. Again, not with certainty, but uncertainty. You know, you probably get what you don't want, perhaps. So you've got to make a decision. Even if it means not doing it, that is a decision on any issue. How do you do that when you don't have all the information you need to make a good and rational decision? There are areas of unknown, and you don't even know how probable those areas are, and you can't guess at the probability of it even because you don't have big enough sample, if you like, of experience in this field to know exactly in this particular situation as you see it, what would be best. What is man's solution? Well, surprisingly, whether he's secular or religious, it made no difference. It was faith. He may have faith, for instance, in the way his parents have always done things. So he errs on that side of things. He'll follow what he thinks mum and dad would have done, in effect, or his culture, or what he's found to work more or less in the past, even though it's sometimes less. You know, he'll resort to habit and custom and all sorts of things. But even that choice of such resort is a question of faith. You know, the tycoon businessman typically has, in some sense, faith in himself, that he's made good decisions in the past and he's able and more able than the next guy to make the right decision here, and he's going to do this and see what happens, you know. And of course, there's an appalling failure rate. And the few that make a brilliant success, fortuitously, like to think that their choice was what did it. Well, in a sense it was, but it wasn't the rationality. It could well have been they'd have been one of those that failed. You know, it's not, for instance, everyone that works hard does well in life. Some do. And those that do tend to recommend working hard. But there's others that worked hard and didn't make anything like, and probably a large number, the success of things. And equally there are those who made very little effort at all, and somehow good fortune, so to speak, perhaps from their point of view, just fell on them and they did extremely well. The more spiritual puts their faith, possibly very specifically, in their view of God, or someone's view of God. And I argue, of course, that it's a big mistake in general not to put it in your own view of God. That's what should really count. But even so, of course, trusting in the God of your religion or your society or your family's view of God and so on may be better than putting your faith in good luck and your sort of brazen self-confidence. But I think it orientates you in a wrong direction. Even so, you could do better by trusting, of course, in your God. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul, and so on. That was the scripture. Does it mean I'm putting my trust in Scripture? No, not quite. I'm believing in rationality, and I believe I'm being rational about it, in the sense that I'm saying, well, I don't see how you could love with all your heart and soul that which you did not already value. In other words, your God has to be the personification of your values, or you can't love Him heart and soul. And if you don't love Him heart and soul, then you won't actually follow what your values imply, and you're never going to learn that you're wrong. You'll just be worshipping some other God, and your values will sort of be affected by your success or failure in doing so. Ideally, discouraging you from such a God back to your view of God. But of course, sometimes not so ideally, and simply discouraged your view in your religion and your God, and you ended up despairing with no God. Well, that wouldn't be very good, would it? In the short run, of course, you may find you're not despairing, you're having wine, women and song, and things are hunky-dory, going very well, thank you, until, catastrophe and ruin perhaps are found to be courting your life as well. I don't know. And that's the reality of things. We are in the world of uncertainty. It's not that we know. We can only go from what we've learned, rightly or wrongly, and what we've experienced as a consequence. Where did I start? My research, decision-making in uncertainty. Well, needless to say, not too much of that went into my PhD preparation. That would not have been acceptable to the academics of my world, I can tell you. And I was preoccupied with a rather narrower field, but at the same time I did find that my actual pattern of life was consistently moving in the same direction, which was the importance of trust and faith. And I was always fascinated by spiritual things from Mum, not particularly Christian things, not particularly not Christian things, of course, but not pro-Christianity. Interested in Indian religion from the point of view of miracle workers and so on, like Mum was. Realised that, well, miracles weren't quite as important as a happy life. And I was a humanist, a philosopher really at heart, you see. But I'd stumbled on something that man's decision-making is a question of faith and trust in something. Might be himself, might be in tradition, might be in religion, whatever. What's it like when you trust in a perfect God, your view of a perfect God? Oh, well, hazardous, I would think. You could be wrong, couldn't you? Yes. But is it something that nonetheless puts you on the right path? Oh, I shouldn't think so. I mean, you might be a grossly selfish individual, but yes, but wouldn't you find out very quickly then that this is not the right path to go down and think, must have made a mistake here. What am I doing wrong? Well, it does look hazardous put like that, doesn't it? And I don't put it like that, of course, in my recordings. What do you think? I claim, as you probably know by now, that if you tend to focus on that which is good and lovely, you'll be filled with hope about the future and a gratitude that you wish to express, and I wanted God to exist so I could express it to my God. So I did. I thought, well, I may as well trust in him then. I choose to trust. And I could thank him for all the goodness I was experiencing. I was in love at the time. Although the one I was in love with was in love with someone else, and I, released that idea of having her in my life. But I was still in love. I thought she was wonderful. And the world was still singing to me. And I was writing poetry for the first time and reading a book by Paramhansa Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi. And his references, of course, were often to comparing his religion with Christianity. And I thought, well, I don't really want a guru, and if I did, I'd choose Jesus, but I don't want one anyway. But I am extremely happy, and I would love to be thankful to a God if God existed. And I suddenly realized, goodness, Marshall, you actually want God to exist. That's a change. And I didn't come down for about 10 days, even though I was alone studying scripture, I might point out, Indian scripture, well, and the book. I think it was basically the book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which was not an autobiography. It was an account of all the amazing people he's had in his life. Yes. And I've not been the same since. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.